Okay, hello Taurus. Welcome to Catalyst Energies and welcome to your new moon astrology forecast. The next new moon is going to be on February 1st, 2022. It's going to be a new moon in Aquarius. We're going to look at that new moon, all of the transits that are surrounding it, the major themes, and then look at the full moon in Leo that is happening on the 16th. So welcome back, everyone. This reading is for Taurus rising, Taurus moon, and Taurus sun, Taurus rising in particular. If you are new here, thank you for stopping by, or new to this series. Just remember that you can subscribe to the channel, you can like, you can comment, you can share, and it all actually supports the channel's growth. So I really do appreciate that. Special shout out to my patrons on Subscribestar. You also are very much part of allowing this channel to grow and the quality to increase as a result of your patronage. So thank you. This is we're about to go through something together. And if you've been following this channel at all or any of my content for any amount of time, especially recently, you know that even since last spring, we've been talking about mid-February into March and April as being a very important time. And you can find that information in the Pleiadian Revival that's linked in the description box below. That's about the nodes of the moon, now in Taurus and Scorpio, especially in the territory of the Pleiades. So Taurus, this is a very important time for you, especially now that the north node of the moon, or Rahu, is in your first sign. Uranus is also in your first house or your sign. And so in terms of just identity, how you feel about yourself, how you express yourself as a Taurus, and the very nature of your personality as a Taurus person has been going through a very consistent but not predictable upheaval, as Uranus usually does. So there is, and as you can see in this chart of the new moon in Aquarius, which is your 10th house, Uranus is a big part of this picture. There's a lot of connections into Uranus, which has to do with who you are. So lately I've been letting Taurus know that they are, in fact, our future, because so much of the trigger for awakening and the soul's direction in terms of the nodes of the moon is in the realm of Taurus. Natural fulfillment, fertile land, stationary, patient, consistent, like I said, fertile. Taurus people have really good taste and they like to be comfortable. Material value is something that is inherent in the Taurus person and just the way that they interact with life. So very much about who you are is the journey we're all going towards or on in that direction at a soul level. So it's important for Taurus to be just aware of what's going on for them. Now, the new moon is in the 10th house in Aquarius. Saturn has also been in Aquarius. This whole new moon is going to be in a square with Uranus. And so the 1st and 10th house are obviously just in a natural square to each other, because you're talking about the baseline of your personality versus the release of all of your energy into some sort of goal or some sort of project or some sort of career. The 10th house is your mission in this life, essentially. So the new moon being here, Saturn being here, there's a lot of power. There is a lot of security. There is a lot of authority in this area of your mission, your career area, the zenith of your destiny and what you are contributing to. So it also represents the social political system you are part of, and all of its workings, because that is something we all contributed to in our society in some way. So oftentimes too, the 10th house is the larger institutions themselves, the economy. This is like Capricorn, right? The economy, the government itself, the ruling body. The 10th house, it represents those types of structures that we are part of. But in a mundane way, it can represent your career and your mission. So if you have starseed markings around your 10th house too, then you know that that's a big part of the mission. So there's a lot of stability, but there's a lot of limitation here. There's a lot of really strong power with Saturn, and you are in a position, Taurus, with this new moon to really grow and develop and set some intentions over the course of February to grow and develop in a way that to be able to measure the changes, the socio-political changes, the changes in your career, the changes in the larger social institutions that you're part of as like a barometer. When you measure the changes, and when you measure the changes in pressure, for instance, you can make a reasonable forecast of weather, right? Same thing in a social environment. And Taurus, this is really being set up, and you have like really strong, functional, tried and true equipment with Saturn here as well, is anchoring this in. Because what's going to happen is the socio-political system, the larger institutional organizations that you are part of and you're giving your energy to, it's being released here when the full moon comes. And we'll look at the chart because it's just remarkable what's happening. You're going to see that the full moon in Leo is going to be here in your 4th house of your personal life. If the 10th house is your public life, your professional life, your mission, what you're here to do, and how you, the actions that it's taking in its unfoldment, that's your 10th house. The 4th house is where you draw your power from, your root system, right? If the 10th house is the tree branches out in the sun and being in the forest, right? If the 10th house is the ecosystem, the 4th house is the roots of the tree itself. You as a tree is part of an ecosystem. So there is a really strong power thing that's going to be happening for Taurus people in particular with this new moon and this full moon. And when the full moon comes around, it's going to be very overwhelming. This full moon is galactic Atlantean degree in galactic and starseed astrology. It's at the 27 to 28 degrees of Leo. That was where the eclipse was in 2017, right? So keep that in mind as well. What was going on then? What changed for you? Because this is also the same area in your personal life, your inner life, your family of origin, your marriage, the emotional community that holds and sustains you, and your root system, the core of who you are, because that's going to show a lot of exciting possibilities. You're going to feel them, but it's all, and especially in the 4th house for you, Taurus, it's going to be very, potentially very overwhelming. It's going to be a lot. All of the potential of the Kundalini is rising and is ready to be released. And sometimes without the proper containment or ability to store and direct that energy, this is where people have their, kind of psychotic breaks. Now, I'm not suggesting that. What I am saying, though, is that this energy is going to be feeling and emotionally expressed in the area that has to do with your inner and personal life and your emotional stability. So keep that in mind. But it's going to be the ecosystem that you're part of and contributing to as an individual. You have a lot of strength here, and you have a lot of really strong authority, but you also have the capacity to, with this new moon, measure the changes that will then allow for you to, can you store information? Can you store energy in this? And can it be released? I think is even more pertinent for the Taurus person with these readings. Are you able to, do you have a system? Not only can you measure, but actually release into something an incredible amount of energy that's going to show you in terms of how it's making you feel in your personal emotional life. And if you do have an outlet for this, it's going to be all of this energy is pointing to Uranus to not only be the kind of the patron of this new moon because of it ruling Aquarius, but also too because how much of the North Node now in Taurus is also written into this whole story, because you're going to see that the full moon has this incredible grand square configuration with the nodes. So when we look at that, that'll make more sense. So let's look at the new moon, because you can see everything drawing over to your 1st house with Uranus here. Black Moon Lilith in your 3rd house will be in a sextile. Venus is recently stationed direct, so at the new moon she'll be moving direct in Capricorn. She's doing very deep inventory, and now she's ready to listen. Now she's ready to engage the belief systems in the 9th house, the higher, broader understanding, the value system that makes civilizations that we are part of, right? The 9th house is foreign and mystical travel, shamanic journeying, and things like that. but also really deep esoteric study. The ninth house is, yes, and also higher education, right? Your master's, your PhD, your dissertation, and the ninth house is understanding and alchemy, and you're in the process of it. So Venus has been in this retrograde, in this very deep inventory, really re-engaging with her own sense of value and worth. And so have we in relation to these areas, and now is ready to listen, and now is ready to apply this in some way, is now ready to actively attract towards her that which she needs in order to really understand the social environment from a much deeper perspective. And so this is really instrumental that she's moving direct, of course, at this new moon, because this also, Mars is going to meet her at the full moon in this area, and Pluto is here, and Mercury is now retrograde back into this area, and they're all making connections over to the North Node, which is in conjunction with the Pleiades in your first house, Taurus. So belief systems have been going through a massive transformation. Values, collective value systems, the understanding of reality is going through massive change. And Mercury is in a retrograde here, and will go back into direct and meet Pluto again and make these connections to the North Node in your first house. Your sense of self, and the fact that we're all on a karmic journey right now at a soul level into these areas to remember and to re-engage with natural fulfillment and a sense of inherent value and worth and strength and fertility. And these are all aspects of who you are, Taurus. So the belief systems are changing. And with the full moon, with Mars and your ruler, Venus, coming together to release you from some sort of repressed aspect that has to do with belief systems that's ready to be let go of. And this whole last lunar cycle with the new moon in Capricorn was a big part of this. There's something left here in the realm of what you know, what's in your brain, your nervous system, your ideas, the communications that you have, the way that you're communicating, the way that you're learning. This already came up with the full moon in mid-January, and what's here with Black Moon Lilith is even deeper. Something even deeper needs to come out in this realm. And Venus here is like a grandmother, a patient grandmother that's holding space and listening in order to understand how we get to understanding, right? This is very meta right now. But also the mechanisms of organization of belief systems as structures. That also is something that Venus is ready to learn and listen. And what is going to come out from a very mental, logical, empirical, observational aspect is something so deep. And there's such a need to protect. And which is why that needs to be expressed, that will be in opposition to Venus, your ruler, but will also be like this incredible harnessing of energy if you can find the midpoint here. You don't want this to take you over in your speech or in your mind, right? Because it can be very explosive, because she will be heard, right? And in Cancer, this is very protective and very emotional and sensitive. But also Venus, like I said, in opposition is holding. It's like she's just kind of sitting back and putting all of her weight on just holding that rope steady while Lilith is just pulling and pulling in her rage, right? And in her a sense of demand, which is really, this is really powerful. And Venus comes over to be in a trine to Uranus in the house that she rules, right? And so again, there's this sense of patience and ready to listen and wanting to listen and taking in the information really now about how belief systems and value systems are structured and what that entails. And this has a lot to do with finding stability in your own identity. when there isn't really, when you're being asked to really transform with crisis after crisis after crisis in your identity. It's not easy. And now with the North Node here, making all these connections to Pluto and Mercury in the realm of belief systems, it also is pointing to the fact that the destruction of old value systems, old belief systems, old paradigms of understanding is essential to your soul's growth in who you are, and transforming who you are. So this is a big part of the story. And there's something with Lilith here in terms of just your mind and what you know and your observations and the way that you express those things is, if you can have a sense of humor about it, as well as realize that there is worth in it, even if it's not fully expressed in other ways. But even if just to have some sense of humor about it, to have the confidence to, see the humor, make fun of yourself, make fun of other situations, because it's so deconditioning. Again, this is a sextile over to Uranus. I think it'll really assist in an aha moment about yourself. But you have to let whatever this is come out of your mind or your knowledge base or in your speech in some way. Or something about the way that you communicate, something about the way that the see the patterns, something deep and primal wants to be heard, and let it out, right? It's a big part of the conversation, because this sun and this whole new moon and even Saturn, I mean, it's wide, but I'd say especially the new moon, but the sun over the weekend is in a direct square. So even with this sense of identification with the social environment, with the socio-political structure as a whole, with the fact that Saturn is here like being a political anchor or a social anchor or a leadership like power broker in this area, it's also going to, there again, disruptions in who you are. This is why this sense of humor over here in your speech and your thoughts is so important. And your ability to find some quiet and some stillness in the political and social structure that you are part of, in order to, again, face the challenge of what will probably feel like a major disruption in your identity again, right? Irritation with a sun and a sun squares Uranus already is irritating and frustrating, and unexpected outbursts possibly. And outburst is strong with Lilith here, Black Moon Lilith in your third house. So again, sense of humor is essential to really transmuting a very difficult situation. So, and this could be like the municipality that you're part of, and like all of the actual arms of the city you live in, right? If the 11th house is the city as a whole, the 10th house is all of the structures that make it run, right? All of the different systems and departments and things like that. So that's something to consider as well. Being able to measure the changes in those types of institutions, again, is going to be the new moon, right? You want to be able to, so that and it's going to show you, can you, in terms of your own emotional stability and a sense of rootedness emotionally, if you can handle and you can hold the incredible amount of combust energy that is going to be felt at the full moon with this grand square. So let's actually look at that. Let's see what we got on time. Yeah, let's look at that full moon. I'm trying to see if there's anything else. It's really about belief systems, Taurus, and collective social paradigms that have been going through massive change. And now Venus going direct, your ruler going direct, and having this trine with Uranus like this is it's important to, it can't be understated, I think, or overstated, excuse me, with how important this is about being patient and ready to listen and learn how belief systems and social meaning is really constructed, and the responsibility that we have and the value that has. It's going to make a big difference when the full moon happens and these two come together and release you from something very dramatically. It's going to be so dramatic, and not the least of which is the fact that, a full moon at the last degrees of Leo is dramatic. So, man, it's going to be something else. Taurus, and it's coming right down to like your very identity and your axis of power. So that's also something to keep in mind. It's going to be very close to home, like literally, in terms of your selfhood. So let's move forward and look at this. Chiron is also part of this conversation, actually, that I should bring up. I'll bring up in a second here. Make it there we go. So you can see so much boldness here, and you can see here's the grand square with the moon, the south node, the sun, the north node, so, or grand cross, you can call it that too, if you have all of the aspect lines drawn. And what we'll also see is that Pluto is in, Mercury will have moved into Aquarius. Mercury will have moved into Aquarius, but Pluto's going to be in a like direct sextile and trine to the north node as well. So the demolition at a social level that Pluto and Capricorn is, and matrix level is represented, is, you know, it's the reset basically, and the agent of it, the destruction that is leading to transformation. I mean, this is very much part of the soul's journey right now into natural fulfillment and into the fifth density, which is where the Pleiadian nature really resides, is in the fifth density. So, which is where we're all going. I mean, we all are going, and this is the time that we're really going at a soul level. Like, we're being drawn there stronger than we probably have in a really long time. So there's all these galactic degrees that are, sorry, my mouse kind of sucks. There's all these galactic degrees that are part of the square as well. So grand square, I mean, this is a conflict nobody's getting out of. Nobody, right? This is something that we have to face. We have to face the challenge and learn and grow from it, rather than we can't. If we turn away from it, we will be frustrated anyway. Like, everybody's going to feel this. And then on top of that, Pluto is at the, you know, pretty much at the Pluto return point of the United States, and is in these really strong and harmonious connections to the nodes of the moon, especially the north node. So you know that it's just going to be like this moment. And then Venus and Mars are in conjunction in the ninth house. So Taurus, I mean, belief systems just, you know, being completely, and social meaning just being completely thrown, you know, just like throwing the shackles off of old systems of belief, and social paradigm systems of belief that are liberating, and will also be, and with Pluto, the destructive element is completely in a supportive and completely foundational connection to our soul's journey into, again, you. Natural fulfillment is the essence of you. Stable, fertile ground, right? Patient, and about the being in communion with the natural world. This is what the Taurus represents. So we see this grand square. We see that belief systems are going, are part of the real big metamorphosis. We know that there are tons of connections to Uranus in the first house, which is really, really challenging the Taurus person, like, consistently, with identity crisis after identity crisis, in order to wake up, in order to transcend, in order to open the third eye. And now with the north node here, this is showing that we're all getting pulled in this direction. We also see that Jupiter, and Chiron's part of this conversation in general. Jupiter is in the 11th house, and Neptune has been here and just kind of making the whole social environment like nothing, you know, completely, there's no boundaries here at all. But now that Jupiter's here, there's an advocate, there's a representative, there's a hierophant, there is some sort of leadership and benefactor here now that is like, okay, let's expand on this space, and how beneficial it really is and what we can get out of it socially, right? A representative coming into the social environment. So this sextile to Uranus at the same time as this full moon is there's somebody, right, or some representation, some sort of spiritual vision for the social environment as a whole that you can that really is holding meaning for the Taurus person, and again can be invested into an identity shift that is definitely happening and can support and support this really strong like quantum leap activation in who you are, because I think it's going to feel kind of like a test with Jupiter. But remember, it's like, the guru puts you through this, the stupid shit in order to wake you up, right? Is maybe like put you through a weird hazing or initiation process and something that tests your strength and character, but they're on your side, and it does seem like that's going to be part of this sextile that is going to allow for, like I said, that crisis in identity. It's something in the social environment and the spiritual potential of the social environment as a whole that is going to be kind of that representative that can invest that into a very difficult time, I think, for Taurus people, just in general, in terms of their very identity. But it's here to represent and assist you, like through some sort of pragmatic action, but from a spiritual vision. And you do have a sense of the transcendent and spiritual potential of the social environment as a whole. And this is going to become way more relevant in the spring as everything starts to shift into Pisces in the 11th house for Taurus. And so there will be a lot more, I think, awareness of why you've been going through a lot of things by the time this happens. In the meantime, just know that this full moon and this grand galactic square with the Atlantean codes like written all over it is all part of, your own soul's evolution. And it's good to know where your nodes are in your natal chart and then progress chart to get an idea of how this comes about for you personally. But right now, the journey is into your identity, and it hasn't been easy, but there is a lot of good and pioneering awakening that's going to come out of the Taurus person if they embrace this. And embrace this full moon grand square. It's because apparently, I'm not sure how true this is, but from one perspective, it was the age of Taurus where the Pleiadian experiment of the Atlantean civilization was happening. So if we're coming out of Pisces and into Aquarius, it just depends on what an age really represents. And so I would say about 2,000 years, we're looking at a precession. So 2,000, 4,000, 6,000. I mean, you're looking at pre-Sumerian, and I guess maybe if that was when we had a advanced or Pleiadian-oriented civilization, that's about the Noah flood as well. So anyway, that's a different conversation. So Taurus, it's really about, the work that's happening on you as a person. Now, like I said, Chiron is part of this conversation because there's going to have to be, just because belief systems, religious paradigms, social value systems are going away and there's a release from a bondage and things like that, that doesn't mean that you can't be part of cultivating more. And this is what Venus and Mars coming together really allow for. And so there's definitely trauma at a multidimensional past life level. There is trauma that is being triggered by the collective's karma as well in the 12th house. And so you want to know, I think it's important to know, Taurus, that Mars is going to square Chiron in the time between the new and the full moon, and this is in conjunction with this is a Lyran starseed activation, so you can really overcome and face your fear about coming into communion with other people and developing a really strong value system, and it will be uncomfortable because it's going to bring up these past situations where there have been violations of that trust and that meaning, right? But if you can face your fear, and Mars is great for that, and you have the Lyran starseed activation, and they are very fearless, and they are just very they just know what it takes, right? They got a lot of courage, the Lyrans, and they've been around the galactic block, so they also know what to expect in terms of what it takes to accomplish things. If you can really harness this, there's going to be some really strong potential healing that can happen here in terms of that. So that's exciting, and is a lot of past life, multidimensional karmic healing for the Taurus person with this square to Chiron. So oh yeah, there's a lot going on here, guys. So I'm going to bring up a flyer real quick, Taurus, just in case you haven't seen it on Telegram or you're not on my email list. This is just starseed readings that I'm offering at a discount right now, leading up to the full moon, actually. So I don't offer 30-minute starseed readings normally because there's just not enough time. But in this instance, if you really are just trying to get a starting point and understanding what this all means for you, this is a great place to start. 60-minute recording is much more involved in your chart, and I usually end up picking up a lot more like intuitive aspects of this while I'm reading, so that happens. And then 30-minute add-ons at $22 for Reiki. I get a lot of intuitive information from this as well. So it's just something to consider. If you're not on my mail list, you can get on there from catalystenergies.net. That's in the description box below. You can email me. Everything you need is in the description box below. The Pleiadian Revival is going to be linked there. The astrology report for the weekend leading up to this new moon is also linked in the description box below if that interests you. And yeah, I'm going to leave it there for now, Taurus. The next time we will come together like this will be for the Leo full moon, and we'll check back in and we'll talk about the rest of the lunar cycle. So thank you so much for being here. I truly appreciate each and every one of you. Thanks for taking the time to check this out. And Taurus, I will see you next time. Bye-bye.